The Phoenix Suns had a chance to sweep the Warriors on Monday night on national TV. They did not. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, we'll break down the loss, why it got closer than expected at the end, and what the big takeaway from this game is. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show wherever you get podcasts. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Monday night, Tuesday morning, recapping the Warriors game. We'll get into it in a second. If you want this show in your feed every single Monday through Friday to get locked on to your favorite team, all you got to do is hit follow or subscribe wherever you're finding us. We're on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. The best way to support the show is just to listen, and it helps you as well. See how that works? You get the info and the analysis that you want. We get to keep making this awesome show, keep growing this community. Almost 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. A big welcome to everybody new who has recently subscribed, and a big welcome to anyone maybe thinking about it. I don't know. If I'm you, I hit the button. We'll see what you do, though. All right, let's get into it. The score, 123 to 112. Much closer in the end than I thought it was going to be, and we have a lot to talk about. Today's show, guys, is brought to you by Ibotta, which gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKED when you register. Go to the App Store or Google Play Store now. Download the free Ibotta app. More from them later on. All right, moment of the game. Let's fast forward. Third quarter, 3:57 mark. I want to tell you before we get into the play-by-play of what happened in that moment that the Warriors had a lead as big as 25 in this game. They scored 43 points in the first quarter. They were up 20 after the first quarter, and it was that second quarter when it got up to 25. It might have even actually come in that first quarter. We get to the third quarter, the moment that I want to talk about, and the Suns cut the lead to 3. All right, Book misses a 3. Josh Okogie gets one of his 3 offensive rebounds and gets the tip in. I want to go through some of the specifics of what happened after this, but I will tell you now, the score at that moment, 87-84 at the 3-minute and 57-second mark of the third quarter, all right? That is the inflection point. From that moment till the end of the third quarter, the Suns only scored 4 more points. All right, so it's the moment when they cut the lead to the smallest that it was going to be the rest of the way. But the Warriors responded with an 11-4 run. All right, and that was kind of exactly the game in a nutshell. The first quarter goes ugly, which we saw a lot during the time in the middle of the season when guys were injured. In this case, it's Durant, but the sort of depth hit that they're taking is similar, and that first quarter getting ugly was also similar. After that, though, the Suns were pretty competitive, but the moment they would make a run themselves, the Warriors seemed to always have a response. In the first half, I believe Klay Thompson had 30 points. I think Steph had about 15 or so, maybe 17. In the second half, it was the Jordan Poole show. They had guys like JaMychal Green getting in on it. They had offensive rebounds from guys like Kevon Looney. It always just felt like the Warriors were able to respond, and this is really what it was here as well. Again, the Suns did a great job. I mean, I tweeted leading up to this moment, the first half or so of the third quarter, I just tweeted, this is a superstar quarter from Devin Booker, and I think that's still what I would say. Normally, I wouldn't tell you I tweeted that. I would just tell it to you on the podcast, but it even by the end of that quarter, it started to sound silly. So I guess the whole quarter wasn't a superstar quarter, but Book was methodical, efficient, effective, physical, all those things to cut the lead and grind out a comeback, and then they get the game within 3 here, and then let's go from there. So this has a lot of similarities to the end of the game against Sacramento when the score got close and the Suns had an opportunity to go get the game. We went through that on Monday's show with Brandon, where I think it was the last 7 or 8 possessions, Book had 0 field goal attempts, or maybe it was no more than 3. I think he had 3. I think Paul had 1, and I think Ayton had 0 or something like that. And this was similar. The Warriors were able to funnel shots to the guys that the Suns did not want taking them. So Book misses a pull-up jumper. Chris Paul misses a pull-up jumper here. But then you have a bunch of possessions of yuck. You had an air ball by Bismack Biyombo. You had a right wing 3 clank by Damian Lee. Josh Okogie did get to the free throw line, but still not necessarily the guy you want taking the shot. You had JaMychal Green blocking Devin Booker. You had Josh Okogie turning the ball over with Andre Iguodala with a signature swat down in the lane, a just classic Iggy moment. Then you have one Booker shot, the left, I believe that was the runner along the left side of the paint, and that was an incredible shot. You had a couple blocks by Biyombo here. You had a turnover by Biyombo, which was kind of ugly as well. And then you look up and the score is double digits again, 98-88 by the end. So in that case, 3 or 4 Book shots, that lineup to close that quarter was Book plus bench, but you just see, Okogie basically being limited to an energy guy, getting to the line, getting offensive rebounds. When he had to do too much in this game, there were some ugly moments. He's 3 of 9 from the field and had 2 turnovers. Minus 10 for him. I'm not going to overreact to the minus 10, but all those things in his stat line don't add up to a pretty picture. Biyombo, limited. Damian Lee misses that shot and seems to have been scouted a little bit here, where unless he's getting a wide open 3, the way he was attacking into the paint and getting to that floater just isn't there for him the same way that it was early in the season. And so that's happening. Meanwhile, Steph Curry is still on the court, and the scoring is all from him. He made 3 free throws to respond and extend the lead. You had a Jordan Poole jumper. You had a Iguodala layup, the ugly one where Biyombo fouled him and the ball kind of just bounced into the basket. Luckily, fortunately for him, but that was assisted by Curry. And then you get to the end. So very much the story of the game in that the Suns were outmatched and outmanned. The Warriors had a response for every Suns run, and overall, Phoenix was just not able to dig themselves out of the hole that they created for themselves by getting completely outdone in that first quarter. On the note of outmanned and outmatched, our big takeaway of the game is coming next. You might have an indication, when I put it that way, where we're headed. We're going to just look at two-way players and what this game told us about these rosters next. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by Ibotta. If you're watching your closet after purchasing all of the season's latest trends, or even just taking advantage of those sales, the early part of the year, you got day after Christmas, you've got Martin Luther King Day, you've got President's Day, all these sales all the time. I know I took advantage. You might have as well. But if you are in those shoes, you can earn cash back on every shopping trip by using Ibotta. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop to get your cash back today. It's that easy. The average Ibotta user earns $120 per year in real cash back. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, or you could use your cash back to buy that flight you've been eyeing, that game you're dying to go to, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. A typical basket of groceries was over $50 more expensive at the end of 2022 than the beginning of the year due to inflation. You could earn 2.5 times that in cash back from Ibotta or more. Ibotta gives you real cash back, not points or coupons or anything like that. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. If with Ibotta, you get real cash back to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. You can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. That's hard cash money that you can spend there. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKED when you register. Go to the App Store, Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app. IBOTTA, and use the code LOCKED. That's IBOTTA, the Ibotta app, and use code LOCKED. Okay, we talked about the moment of the game that midway through the third quarter, 84-87, the Warriors extend their lead and don't look back. What does the game tell us about the Suns? To me, it was that the Warriors right now, with Curry back in the lineup playing very, very solid basketball on both ends of the floor, and Klay Thompson going supernova, and the cohesion and depth that we knew they had. They're the defending champs, of course, even though their road record would convince you otherwise. They are deep. They are balanced. The roster is there. There are some questions still remaining for them, which I will get to in a second. I don't want to be overly complimentary of them. Again, this game was close in the end, and they squeaked by the Giannis-less Bucks on Saturday. This is not a flawless Warriors team, but they have a lot of two-way players, okay? And the Suns right now don't. The Suns have several. That's why they've also been winning games leading up to this, but you just go through it, right? The entire Warriors starting lineup, I would say, two-way players, right? DiVincenzo's starting right now because Wiggins is in Minnesota reportedly with a family situation going on. I don't know, obviously. Why would I know the details on that? But he's away. DiVincenzo is also a two-way player, though. I would say Wiggins, you would add him to that list. And then they have a bunch of guys who can be two-way players, but at the very least are elite one-way players, which the Suns also don't have a lot of, right? The Jordan Pooles, the Jonathan Kumingas, who is more of a physical defensive guy, but can make an impact on the game. And then, of course, Gary Payton II. So 6 two-way players by my count on Golden State's roster, and 2 or 3 incredible specialists who can stay on the court because they're so good on one side of the ball. That's getting you to 9 people. You know, I know that they're such a weird team this season, but that's the fact of the matter for them. On the Suns side, I think that they have 3 two-way players. And I know that that's an overly simple way to look at talent and look at people and look at players, but it really manifested and showed itself in this game. The way that the Suns were struggling to score when Booker was off the court. They were throwing box and ones on him where one guy just follows him, and then they basically zone up behind that with a box structure, a square structure in the paint or inside the arc. You know, they just couldn't really form lineups that could meet the moment against Golden State. Chris Paul is 5 of 13, so I think the Suns right now have 3 bona fide two-way players, and that's crazy, right? I mean, they have a top 3 player in the NBA with an ankle sprain right now, so of course that's a huge hole. I don't mean to overlook or overstate that, but at the same time, let's say Durant's in there. Okay, the number goes to 4, right? I just told you I think Golden State has 6. And so why that matters and what I think it can mean is it's not anything new. I'm not telling you anything new about Josh Okogie and Torrey Craig, right? We knew those guys were going to be X factors. We knew that they're going to be inconsistent. You know, Craig hasn't felt like had a good night from 3 in at least a week. I don't even remember the last time he did. Okogie's actually making his threes the past couple of games without Durant, but the other stuff not as pretty. You know, not attacking closeouts and getting to the basket. Some of that stuff is not there. The ball handling, bringing the ball up and initiating, that they haven't really asked him to do. So those guys, it's no surprise. They're out there to defend the best people on the opposing team and space the floor and provide energy, which they did tonight. 5 combined offensive rebounds. But beyond those two, the guys who maybe off the bench are supposed to be a little bit more balanced. Somebody like Cam Payne, right, who he finally got on the court a little more today. He was the leading guy off the bench in terms of minutes with 18, tied with Damian Lee. But, you know, 9 and 3, it's not exactly a terrible game for him, but did not really feel Cam Payne's presence tonight. 0 of 1 from deep. I think his ability to hit pull-up threes, his ability to hit transition threes and get the pace going and mix and match what he's doing on offense as a scorer is really what makes him special. If he's just, you know, getting some garbage buckets here and there, it's not exactly a difference-making thing. Defensively, didn't really, you know, he has to be in the right matchup and in the right rhythm and groove to really make a difference defensively. Most nights, that's not what you're really expecting from him, so I don't classify him that way right now. He's coming back from this injury. He doesn't look like himself. He's far from a difference-making, comfortable two-way player. Terrence Ross has shown us he's not going to be that. I just don't think you can really say that right now with the way that he's able to be attacked on defense. He's not physically going to have the functional strength to kind of match up with bigger wings. He's not explosive or quick enough to really contain guards, and he sort of becomes a tweener in that way. And on down the line, right? The center rotation, Bismack Biyombo got the minutes today. I thought he had some nice moments, but the Warriors were begging him to get post-ups, and the Suns obliged them more often than they probably should have. So we've gone through all the players, but you get my point. And I guess the kind of way to sum up where this is leading is we all, maybe have forgotten about Landry Shamet. Maybe a lot of you are listening and thinking, that guy again, please, Lord, no. I know that he is a frustrating player because of his lack of aggressiveness offensively, but he is a two-way player. He might not be elite, but the Suns just don't have a lot of those. And he can shoot. He will shoot. Most of the time he's at least going to get up 4 or 5 threes, even on a less aggressive night, which is more than most of these Suns players are doing right now, at least in terms of attempts. And so Shamet, you can trust him to rotate correctly. He has length. He can be, I could see him playing with the big four on this team, right? Maybe not starting. I think Okogie deserves and will continue to hold that spot, and what he does against somebody like Curry, for instance, tonight is still important. But I don't think it would be crazy to see times when maybe Shamet closes games, because he is that balancing piece for them, where he can be a perimeter defender, he can play good team defense, but he's also going to be able to have the ball in his hands a little bit, shoot when he's open, make open threes, etc. High IQ player, all that stuff. I was of the opinion that we might see, because Shamet has been out, when the Durant trade happened, there was a little part of me that would always just throw out, when we were talking about who's the fifth guy, whatever. I almost always wanted to say Damian Lee, because I just thought, well, wouldn't you really, in an ideal world, want more of a 3-and-D player? Okogie is sort of molding himself into that, but he still has a little bit of weaknesses just in terms of the discomfort with the ball in his hands. And if you could just get somebody with a little more comfort there, even if they're not as good defensively as Okogie, my idea was like, that would probably be the perfect thing. Maybe that's Shamet. It's not going to be Lee, it doesn't look like, because he just isn't getting the shots that he used to. The defense is not giving that to him like they were happy to early in the year when he was shooting 50% from deep, right? And so I guess that's where I am, and I just, I don't even necessarily want to make it that, the Durant trade put them in this situation, right? Because I think that there's a very easy case to be made that, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, and Jay Crowder were all two-way players. Dario Saric wasn't, right? And they got rid of him. I think in a lot of situations against bad matchups, you were gonna have questions on if Cam Johnson was that. You probably were. Like Luka, I think it was eye-opening to see what Luka was able to do against somebody in Cam Johnson, who we think of as a pretty physical, solid option at the forward spot as a 3-and-D player, right? A 3-and-D plus type of player. And Luka just bowled him over. It wasn't even just that Luka got a first step on him. Luka just bowled Cam Johnson over. And so the Suns were in a similar position before this, right? It's incredibly hard to build a deep and balanced roster at the highest levels with elite talent. I mean, that sounds obvious, right? But if every team could do that, it wouldn't be hard to win in the NBA. And heads up, newsflash, it sure is. But right now, especially without Durant, while the Suns continue to try to win these games, they're at a disadvantage in a lot of these high-level matchups. You just look ahead to Milwaukee, Tuesday night. Middleton, Holiday, Allen, Connaughton, Portis, Lopez, Giannis, all two-way players, right? Suns are going to be top heavy. The Suns are going to have nights like this. I thought they did an amazing job fighting and getting this game close despite all of that. Booker was absolutely phenomenal in that third quarter, I thought, and really throughout the game. But that's the reality. The Suns are not going to have the easy, comfortable matchups and answers for everything like some teams will. All right, I have a box score oddity for you. I have some more bench mob vibe check for you, and I have some unreasonable speculation for you to close out the show. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, official sports betting partner not only of the Locked On Podcast Network, but also the NBA. All right, so it's also America's #1 sportsbook because new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers to threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. All right, so I was looking through awards, and the one quick thing I will make you guys aware of here as we talk through FanDuel's wonderful offering of odds is Sixth Man of the Year. So Malcolm Brogdon is currently the heavy favorite at -175. Emmanuel Quickley is sitting there at +200. Anything you're getting plus odds on with a guy that is getting momentum and narrative behind him, I think you should definitely glom onto. I'm the dummy who thinks Bam Adebayo could still win DPOY. Doesn't seem like anyone agrees. He's at +2,400, but drop that in there as well for you guys. That is just some of what FanDuel has for you. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, first thing box score oddity-wise here is going to be the free throw shooting on the part of the Warriors. There was a stretch, and I think I probably should have given a little bit of fairness to the Warriors as I was talking through that comeback. About the 9-minute mark, Klay Thompson missed back-to-back free throws. I think he finished 3 of 6 in the game. No, 2 of 5 in the game. But those 2 misses they were right when the Suns were making their run, cutting the lead to single digits. And that did not help them by any means. But overall, you also look at not just Klay, but Kevon Looney, 1 of 4. Poole, 0 of 1. Moody, 2 of 3. But really, it was Looney and Thompson just missing. And then you look up, and the Warriors are at 58% from the free throw line. So a nice part of the reason why the Suns were able to get back into this one. I think from a stat standpoint, the other quick box score oddity would just be the three-point shooting. It's really not an oddity. I mean, it goes right in line with what I was saying about the two-way player stuff. Yes, Steph and Klay and Poole were 16 of the Warriors' 19 makes. But DiVincenzo made a couple. JaMychal Green as a small ball 5 came out and made one. And that was that. Iguodala, Moody, those guys took 1 apiece, didn't make theirs. That's fine. But 19 of 39. On the Suns side, Booker just one of those nights where he wasn't really able to take any because the attention was so aggressive on him and on the perimeter that he had to get back past his man or men guarding him in order to even have a chance at a shot, so no threes were available to him. Paul, 0 of 4, and we talked about some of the role players. So not exactly an oddity, but definitely a deciding factor in the game. I just wanted to mention one more thing on the bench mob vibe check here, the rotation side of things, which is to circle back to the center, backup center spot. Bismack Biyombo in the second half against Sacramento on Saturday night got the minutes at the backup 5 spot because Jock just wasn't playing well. I didn't go back and really chart Jock Landale's minutes against the Kings. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But I just think generally as a rule of thumb, giving somebody 1/2, even in a game that you did want to win, like the Kings game, before you make a change is not for the best, especially because I thought Landale had been playing really well. Yes, you're in this awkward phase in limbo right now where Landale, part of why he had been so good is because he was establishing some chemistry with Durant. Durant is no longer obviously out there, and so do you just keep letting Landale roll the ball out and get to be part of this? Or do you make a change? I'm not necessarily against looking elsewhere, but I don't like doing it in the middle of a game against the Kings, and I don't like putting Biyombo out there in this particular matchup. I'm sure there were reasons why. He made a couple of nice defensive plays. He, against somebody like Looney, against somebody like Draymond, who are more, quicker, more finesse, agile centers. You can imagine why Biyombo can keep up with them, move with them, do that type of thing. But he's not really going to be somebody you want to switch very much. Not that Landale necessarily is either, but he just, the weaknesses or the cons of that seem to outweigh the pros to me. The other part, more important, is that Jock played well against this team in earlier matchups this season, and that's really the confusing part of it. I think the Suns really got some good minutes out of Landale, who was more likely and able to punish the Warriors' switches, get those post-ups against mismatches, and score off of it than Biyombo was. So that does not make a lot of sense to me when you know that the Warriors are going to play you that way. They were defending Book with Draymond. In past times, they've defended Chris Paul with Draymond. You get that switch. The small guy ends up on a big man, and you can dump it off and get some points. Landale would have been able to do that, and they just chose not to play him. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Unreasonable speculation. It's not even speculation, I guess, in this case. It's just, I bet you were worried I was going to go the Wiggins route of what's going on with him. I will not be commenting. I have nothing to say. No, I think the point that I want to make here that is unreasonable, but maybe less speculative, is just that the Warriors are wasting a roster spot on Andre Iguodala. If we're being honest with each other, right? Like, I just went through their two-way talent, but they really are in desperate need of another big forward. And I know Otto Porter got a bigger contract than a minimum when he went to Toronto, so it's not a one-for-one. But you just look around the NBA, and there's guys that were probably gettable, not as good as Otto Porter, but more along those lines. And JaMychal Green hasn't really worked out for them. He's not exactly the same type of player. There's reasons for this, but just shoehorning Iguodala into that roster spot, I guess the speculation is that they could have gotten a better player. That might be not real. But similar to Udonis Haslem, these teams, when they're just sort of toiling around 500 and they have these limitations with their rotation and their roster, and you look up and they have a 35 to 40-year-old guy sitting there, it's like, I understand the respect. I understand you always have a home here. We're not going to do wrong by you. They already had to trade him when Kevin Durant left, and all of that stuff happened that summer. He ends up in Memphis, where he doesn't even check into the team, and he's away, and then he gets cut, and all that stuff. I get it, but it was surprising and kind of shocking to me that they brought him back, and he just hasn't even played that much, and he didn't really do a ton tonight. So that's that. All right, that'll wrap us up for today. Another game on Tuesday night. I will be there. The Bucks. We're not sure if Giannis is going to play. He was questionable here on Monday night. He did end up playing in this one, so you could see him resting. Either way, the Bucks have shown that is not going to be an easy win. So the Suns need to get back in the W column. We'll see if they can do it. Hit follow or subscribe to get my recap show after the final buzzer on Tuesday, as well as on Thursday when the Suns play the Magic, and more shows every Monday through Friday throughout the rest of the season and beyond. In the meantime, go make Locked On NBA your second listen. Catch up on all things NBA around the league. That show's available on all podcast platforms as well, and I will talk to you all on Tuesday.